Oh, you're here. Good. I've got another betrayal story for you. Sit down. They say success brings people closer, but that night, my wife's laughter cut deeper than any failure ever could. My name's Ryan Carter. I'm 34 years old, and for the first time in my career, I thought I'd finally reached the peak. Months of sleepless nights, endless revisions, and 100 battles fought in the office had led to this moment, the launch of the company's most ambitious project. And the crazy part? I hadn't done it alone. My wife, Jenna, had been right there beside me, building it piece by piece. Together, we were unstoppable, or at least that's what I want to believe. The dinner was meant to celebrate all of it. The success, the recognition, and if the whispers in the office were true, the likely promotion that was waiting for us. We walked into the restaurant to applause, colleagues waving, glasses clinking. The place smelled like roasted garlic and steak, a mix of perfume and wine in the air. For a moment, I let myself relax. This was our night, our work, our victory. I sat at the long table, Tyler across from me. He was my younger brother, not part of the company, but close enough to me to want to share the moment. He gave me a grin. Man, I never thought you'd be the suit and tie success story. Guess I owe you dinner after this one. I laughed, shaking my head. Save it for after the promotion. Then you'll really regret it. The night rolled on with drinks and speeches. My boss, Mark, made a big show of congratulating us, talking about how the project redefined the company's vision. Everyone clapped, the sound bouncing off the polished walls. I glanced at Jenna, glowing under the attention, her eyes sharp, lips curved in a practiced smile. She knew how to play the room. But then came the moment that changed everything. Someone shouted for Jenna to give a speech. She was already tipsy, flushed cheeks and a wobble in her stance as she took the mic. I thought she'd thank the team, maybe say something about how hard we'd worked. Instead, she leaned into the mic, laughing. I guess I should thank Ryan too, she said, her words slurred just enough to sound careless. He's always been my safe choice. The room went quiet, save for a few awkward chuckles. She kept going. Really, he's steady, reliable, never takes risks. I guess that's fine for a husband, right? But let's be honest, I could have done better. Her laugh rang out sharp and hollow, bouncing through my skull. My chest tightened, heat crawling up my neck. I forced a smile, but every eye in the room was on me, some pitying, some pretending not to notice. Tyler's face twisted as he glanced at me. He tried to cut through the tension. "Hey, come on, she's just drunk," he said loudly, clapping his hands. "Let's raise a glass to Ryan and Jenna, the dream team." He tried to spark some cheer, but it landed flat. I sat there frozen, gripping the stem of my glass, so tightly I thought it might shatter. My wife, the woman I'd built my career, my life with, had just turned me into a punchline in front of everyone I respected. The rest of the evening blurred. Conversations carried on, laughter returned, but not for me. Every whisper, every sideways glance felt like a knife. I stayed quiet, nodding when people spoke to me, smiling when I had to, but inside I was boiling. On the ride home, Jenna leaned against the window, humming to herself like nothing had happened. I stared at the road, hands clamped on the wheel, replaying her words in my head. Safe choice. I could have done better. Tyler had texted me before we even pulled into the driveway. "You okay? Don't let it get to you." She was out of line. I didn't reply. What was I supposed to say? That my wife had just cracked something in me that I wasn't sure could be fixed? We got inside. Jenna kicked off her heels, and within minutes she was asleep on the couch. I stood there in the dark living room, staring at her, wondering if she even remembered what she'd said, wondering if it even mattered to her. That night, I didn't sleep. My mind spun with questions I couldn't answer. Was it just the alcohol, or had she meant every word? And if she had, what did that mean about everything we'd built together? I used to think betrayal came in obvious forms: lies, affairs, broken promises. But sometimes it comes wrapped in laughter, disguised as a joke. And sometimes the deepest cuts don't come from enemies. They come from the person sitting next to you, smiling like nothing's wrong. By the time the sun rose, one thing was clear. Something had broken, and I wasn't sure if it could ever be put back together. I woke up with the sound of her laughter still stuck in my head, like a song I couldn't turn off. It wasn't the playful kind of laugh I used to love. It was sharp, mocking, cutting straight through me. I lay there staring at the ceiling, feeling my stomach twist. Jenna was still asleep beside me, breathing evenly, as if nothing had happened the night before. I finally rolled out of bed, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table rehearsing the words in my head. I couldn't just let it slide. Not this time. When she finally walked in, still in her robe, hair messy, but her face calm, I didn't wait. "Why'd you do that?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant it to be. "Last night, in front of everyone." She blinked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "Do what?" "Call me a safe choice. Say you could have done better." I set the mug down harder than I intended. "You humiliated me." She shrugged, pouring herself coffee like it was nothing. "Oh, Ryan, I was drunk. Don't be so sensitive." The way she said it, light, dismissive, like I was a child whining over nothing, made my chest tighten. "Drunk doesn't mean you say things you don't think." I pressed. "That sounded real, Jenna. You meant it." She turned, eyes narrowing. "You're overthinking. God, you always do this." It was a joke. People laughed. "Move on." Her tone didn't sound like guilt or regret. It sounded like irritation, like I was inconveniencing her by bringing it up, and that, more than her words, told me everything I needed to know. The air between us grew heavier as the morning dragged on. Every look, every word carried an edge. She rolled her eyes when I mentioned being embarrassed. She called me dramatic, sensitive, weak, words she'd never used before. Or maybe she had, and I just hadn't wanted to hear them. By the time I got to the office, my skin still burned from the conversation. But walking through those glass doors, I realized it wasn't just a home where things had shifted. Colleagues glanced at me, then turned away quickly. Conversations hushed when I passed. Whispers trailed behind me like shadows. I tried to shake it off, diving into work. But every time I looked up, I caught someone's eyes darting back to their screen. At lunch, a teammate avoided sitting near me, choosing a different table. It was like the humiliation from dinner had leaked into the office, poisoning my reputation overnight. Jenna, on the other hand, glided through the halls like nothing had happened. She laughed with co-workers, leaned in close with our boss Mark, and every time I saw her, she looked radiant, untouchable. She didn't even look at me the way she used to, not with pride, not with affection. It was something colder, harder. By midweek, the whispers had changed. I overheard two colleagues talking by the coffee machine. They're saying Jenna's getting the promotion. What about Ryan? A pause, then a quiet laugh. Haven't you heard? He's not in the picture anymore. The words hit like a punch to the gut. I stood frozen, holding my empty mug, pretending not to hear. Not in the picture anymore? How? I'd built that project with my own two hands. Nights, weekends, my blood pressure through the roof. All of it was mine as much as hers. That afternoon, I caught Tyler's text. People are still talking about that dinner. Man, you okay? I didn't reply. What could I say? That I wasn't just embarrassed anymore. I was being erased? By the end of the day, Jenna was practically glowing. I overheard her chatting with Mark outside his office, their voices low, but her laughter sharp. The same laugh from that night, the one that told me everything had changed. Walking past them, I felt their eyes on me, though neither said a word. For the first time in years, I realized I wasn't standing beside her anymore. I was standing alone. And the more I thought about it, the more I knew this wasn't just drunken banter. This was something darker, something deliberate. And I wasn't imagining it. The cracks had started to show, and soon they were going to break everything apart. By midweek, the gnawing in my gut had turned into certainty. I could feel it in the way people moved around me, how conversations paused when I entered a room, how Jenna carried herself with a little too much confidence. Something was wrong, and I wasn't imagining it anymore. The rumors weren't whispers now. They were practically headlines. At the break room coffee machine, I overheard two senior analysts debating my future like I wasn't 3 steps away. "Pretty sure Ryan's out," one muttered. "Out? You mean not promoted?" The other asked. "No, I mean fired. They're saying Mark already signed off. It's just a matter of time." My stomach dropped. Fired? The thought had never crossed my mind. I had carried this project on my back, pulled late nights, even covered mistakes that would have sunk the launch if I hadn't fixed them. Now they were saying I was expendable. I tried to brush it off, but by noon it was impossible. People looked at me the way you look at a car accident. Sympathy mixed with morbid curiosity. Every polite smile felt rehearsed. Every, "Hey, how's it going?" was hollow. It was like I was already gone, just waiting for the official word. When Mark's secretary pinged me and said, "The boss wants to see you," the whole office seemed to pause. I felt their eyes on my back as I walked his office, my shoes too loud against the carpet. Mark sat behind his desk with that smug, polished grin, the kind he used to win over investors. He gestured to the chair like we were about to have a friendly chat. "Ryan, come in. Have a seat." I sat, my palms sweating. He leaned back, folding his hands. "Listen, you've been a real asset to the company. We all appreciate your hard work. But the truth is, the board has decided to restructure. We're moving in a new direction." The words were scripted. I could practically see the note cards in his head. I stared at him, waiting for the real explanation, but he just kept smiling. "Restructure?" I repeated. "Mark, 80% of that project was mine. You said it yourself in meetings. I carried this thing. And now you're telling me I'm out." He gave a little shrug. "Sometimes it's not about effort, Ryan. It's about fit. And, well, Jenna seems to be a better fit for where we're heading." There it was. My heart sank, but my blood boiled. He didn't even bother to hide it. He was kicking me out to keep Jenna. "This is a setup," I said quietly, almost to myself. Mark tilted his head. "Now, let's not get dramatic. We'll give you a fair severance. 2 months' pay. Think of it as a chance to reset. Find something new. You're talented. You'll land on your feet." His smirk made me want to put my fist through the desk. But I sat there, jaw tight, forcing myself to breathe. Exploding wouldn't save me. He wanted me rattled, broken. I wouldn't give him that satisfaction. When I finally stood, my legs felt heavy. I opened the door and stepped back into the hall. Silence. Everyone who'd been pretending to work looked up, their eyes darting between me and Mark's office. They knew. They all knew. A few faces showed pity, but no one spoke. No one dared. I walked past them, every step echoing in the tense quiet, my throat dry, my pride in shreds. At my desk, Jenna was waiting. She looked at me with this strange mix of feigned concern and thinly veiled annoyance. "Well," she asked. "I'm done," I said flatly. "Fired?" She sighed, shaking her head like I'd let her down. "Ryan, maybe you just weren't good enough. Not everyone's cut out for this level." I stared at her, searching for a trace of comfort, of solidarity, of the woman who was supposed to be on my side. But there was nothing, just cold eyes and a tone that made it sound like she'd been expecting this all along. "Not good enough?" I repeated. "You really believe that?" She crossed her arms. "I'm just being honest. You can't keep blaming everyone else when things don't go your way. Maybe this will be good for you, force you to grow up a little." Her words were acid. Grow up? After everything I'd sacrificed, after all the nights I'd spent carrying her mistakes, polishing her presentations, covering her gaps. Now I was a failure? I felt my throat tighten, my fists clench. But I didn't say anything more. Not yet. I turned away, gathering what little dignity I had left, though my mind was racing. Something about the way she said it, the way Mark smiled through his lies. It all clicked. This wasn't bad luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It was planned. And Jenna's lack of shock, her cold detachment, it told me she was in on it. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But the truth was hanging there, just out of reach. And I was going to find it. Because betrayal leaves fingerprints. And I was done pretending not to see them. The days after my firing blurred together, each one heavier than the last. I woke up late, scrolled through half-hearted job postings, and stared at the ceiling more than I cared to admit. Jenna didn't even pretend to be supportive. She walked around the apartment like she just unloaded dead weight, going out early, coming home late, tossing casual remarks about how some people can't handle pressure. Every word was designed to cut deeper. I kept replaying Mark's smug smile and Jenna's cold eyes in my head, trying to stitch the pieces together. I knew they'd work me out of the company, but the why kept gnawing at me. Power? Ego? Or something else I hadn't seen yet. On the fourth day, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. For a moment, I thought it might be a recruiter. Finally, some good news. I answered quickly. Ryan. The voice was soft, uncertain. Yes. This is Claire, from the office. I froze. Claire, the secretary who always seemed polite, distant, too professional to ever step out of line. Why was she calling me now? Claire, I said cautiously. Please don't hang up, she rushed. I don't even know if I should be doing this, but I can't stay quiet anymore. My pulse quickened. What are you talking about? She hesitated, her breath shaky over the line. I overheard things. Meetings. Conversations. Ryan, you weren't fired because of restructuring. You were pushed out. Deliberately. I closed my eyes, the words confirming what I'd suspected. By Mark. Yes, but not just him. She swallowed hard. Jenna, too. They've been involved. For a while. Her voice cracked on that last word, but my world cracked with it. I felt the air leave my lungs as though I'd been punched. Involved? They've been seeing each other behind your back, she said quickly. Mark promised her promotion. Told her she'd rise faster without you in the way. I heard them planning how to make you look replaceable. How to get rid of you cleanly. She stopped, and I could hear the tremor in her breathing. I should have told you sooner. I'm sorry. The room spun. Every laugh they'd shared. Every time I caught them lingering in conversation too long. It all fell into place. This wasn't just betrayal. It was orchestrated, calculated, and rehearsed. I gripped the phone tighter. How long have you known? A few weeks, she admitted, guilt heavy in her voice. I was afraid. Mark could fire me on the spot. He's done it before. But after what they did to you, I couldn't stand it anymore. Watching you walk out, watching her act like you were nothing. Her voice broke again. I sank onto the couch, my hand covering my face. The rage bubbling inside me was hot, but beneath it, there was something colder. Final. This wasn't speculation anymore. I had the truth. Then Claire said something I didn't expect. Ryan, there's another reason I'm calling. This is hard to admit, but I can't keep it in. I've admired you for a long time. The way you work, the way you carry yourself, the way you treat everyone with respect. I never said anything because, well, you were married, and I didn't want to be that person. But seeing you destroyed like this, it broke me. I had to tell you. I was silent, stunned all over again. My wife was betraying me with my boss, and now the one person brave enough to tell me the truth was confessing feelings of her own. Claire, I finally said, my voice rough. I don't even know what to say. You don't have to say anything, she whispered. I'm not expecting anything from you. I just couldn't let you think you were crazy. You're not. They set you up, and you deserve to know someone believes in you. Someone always has. Her words hit harder than I expected. For the first time in days, I didn't feel completely alone. "Thank you," I said quietly, and I meant it. We talked for another half hour, Claire carefully walking me through what she'd overheard. The late-night conversations, the closed-door meetings, Jenna's promises to Mark that she'd handle me. Each detail was another nail in the coffin of my marriage. When we finally hung up, I sat in silence, staring at the wall. The betrayal wasn't just professional. It was personal, intimate, and deliberate. My wife hadn't just mocked me in public. She gutted my career, my pride, my trust, all for a man who wore fake smiles and empty promises. The pain was sharp, but underneath it was a growing resolve. For the first time since the dinner, the fog lifted. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't paranoid. I'd been betrayed, deeply, deliberately, and I was done being the fool. Armed with the truth, I stopped wallowing. The anger was still there, sharp as glass, but it wasn't dragging me down anymore. It was pushing me forward. I wasn't going to let Jenna and Mark write the ending to my story, not when I had the receipts. The first thing I did was take a hard look at the project that had cost me everything. 80% of it was mine. My code, my strategies, my presentations. And the best part? It was public. Every client who saw it, every investor who praised it, they were praising my work, whether they knew my name or not. And some of them did. My inbox, which I had been too bitter to check, was already full of messages. Recruiters, other companies, even an old contact I hadn't spoken to in years. "Ryan, impressive work on the launch. We'd love to talk. Saw the project roll out. Your fingerprints are all over it. Interested in exploring a leadership position?" The offers weren't just good. They were better. Higher salaries, bigger titles, more freedom. Everything Mark had dangled like bait, Jenna had stolen, was now being handed to me, because the world saw the truth they thought they could bury. I started setting up interviews, and to my surprise, I felt alive again. Claire helped too. She'd send me little reminders, forward me leads, even prep me with background on who I was talking to. "You've got this," she'd text before each call. "They're lucky just to be speaking with you." Her support was steady, genuine. Every time I heard her voice or read her words, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Someone actually believed in me, not just in my ability to provide for them, but in me. Meanwhile, I stayed quiet about collecting my things from the company. Mark expected me to slink back in, pack up my box, and disappear. Jenna probably expected the same, smug in her new role. But I had no intention of giving them that satisfaction. If I were going to walk back into that office, it wouldn't be to leave quietly. It would be to finish this on my terms. So I waited. I focused on interviews, on lining up the next chapter of my career. And when the offers came through, I chose carefully. Not the flashiest, not the highest paying. The one that gave me room to grow, to build, to be more than just a cog in someone else's machine. A place where my work couldn't be stolen and paraded as someone else's. When the contract was signed and the start date set, I called a lawyer. Divorce papers. Clean, clear, airtight. I didn't want drama, didn't want excuses. I wanted it in black and white. The end of a marriage that had turned into a performance at my expense. The lawyer walked me through it, page by page. I signed where I needed to, my hand steady. For the first time in weeks, I felt in control. The weight that had been pressing down on me since that dinner was finally shifting. Claire knew, of course. She saw the change in me. "You're different," she said one night over the phone. "Lighter, like you've already moved on." "Because I have," I told her. "They thought they destroyed me, Claire. But they just forced me into something better." There was a pause. Then her voice softened. "I'm glad. You deserve that." The bond between us grew, quietly but undeniably. She wasn't pushing, wasn't trying to take advantage of my broken marriage. She was just there, constant, reliable, the opposite of everything Jenna had become. And in the back of my mind, a plan kept sharpening. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to stoop to their level. I would end it publicly, the same way Jenna had humiliated me. But this time, I'd be the one holding the knife. The day before I was set to start my new job, I looked at the divorce papers on my desk, neatly stacked, waiting for delivery. I thought about that restaurant, the clinking glasses, the way Jenna's laugh had sliced me open in front of everyone. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about closure, about making sure the last image anyone had of me in that company wasn't a broken man walking out with a cardboard box. It would be me, standing tall, ending things on my terms. I called Claire that night, told her my plan. She didn't try to talk me out of it. Instead, she said, "Then do it. Show them you're not the man they thought you were. You're better." The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in months. Suit pressed, papers in my briefcase. I headed for the office one last time. This wasn't going to be quiet. This was going to be the final. And when it was done, I wasn't just walking away from a failed marriage and a toxic job. I was walking towards something real, towards someone real. The following week, I walked back into the office, calm but resolved. The air felt different the moment I stepped inside, sterile, heavy with the smell of burnt coffee and the quiet hum of keyboards. It wasn't my place anymore, but I hadn't come to belong. I had come to the end of it. I wore the best suit I owned, freshly pressed, polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. My briefcase hung at my side, the papers inside heavier than their weight. Not boxes, not a farewell email, just one envelope that was sliced through everything. The whispers started immediately. Heads turned. "Isn't he fired?" Someone whispered. "What's he doing here?" Another murmured. The surprise washed over the office like a ripple. And then I saw her. Jenna was sitting at my old desk. No, her desk now. Glowing in her new role, laughing with colleagues who hovered around her like moths to a flame. She leaned back in her chair, projecting power, every inch of her rehearsed. She didn't even notice me at first, too wrapped up in performance of her new identity. But when her eyes finally caught mine, the smug grin faltered. Just for a second, then she straightened, masking it with a thin smile. "Ryan," she said loud enough for people around us to hear. "What are you doing here?" I walked forward, steady, deliberate, every step carrying the weight of weeks of betrayal. The chatter around us died. Chairs creaked as people leaned in, sensing something they didn't want to miss. I stopped in front of her desk. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The silence in the office was louder than anything I could have shouted. "You wanted better," I said, pulling the envelope from my briefcase and placing it squarely on her desk. "You got it." The white envelope sat between us like a detonator. Her hand twitched, fingers brushing the edge. She opened it just enough to see the word divorce across the top of the first page. Gasps echoed around us. A few colleagues shifted uncomfortably. Others froze, eyes wide. Jenna's face drained to color, her fake smile dissolving. "Ryan, wait," she stammered, voice trembling now, the confidence gone. "This isn't. Can we talk about this privately?" I shook my head. "No more private. You shamed me in public. You betrayed me in public. And this," I tapped the papers once with my finger, "ends in public." Her mouth open and closed, desperate, scrambling for excuses. "It's not what you think. I was drunk that night. I didn't mean it." "You meant every word." I cut in, my voice steady, sharper than a blade. "And you didn't just laugh at me. You cut me out, you plotted behind my back, and you thought I'd never know." Murmurs rippled through the office. People glanced at each other, whispers darting from desk to desk. Mark's door was cracked open. I could feel his shadow watching, even if he didn't step forward. Jenna's hands shook as she tried to gather the papers. "Ryan, please, we can work this out." I leaned in just enough for only her to hear, though the room was still deathly quiet. "I'm done being your safe choice. You wanted better, remember?" Well, here's your chance to live with it. And then I straightened, turned, and walked out. Not fast, not hurried. Each step deliberate, reclaiming every ounce of dignity they'd tried to strip from me. The office stayed silent, the only sound my footsteps against the tile. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. By the time I reached the elevator, I could feel the weight finally lifting. The humiliation of that dinner, the sting of being fired, the betrayal, it all broke loose behind me. For the first time in weeks, I felt free. 1 week later, I sat in a different office, the skyline stretching out to the glass windows. A new job, a new beginning. My name on the door, respect in every handshake. Claire sat across from me, nervously clutching a coffee cup she brought in. She'd followed through on her promise. She left Mark's company, walked away from the poison, and joined me here. At first, it was just as colleagues, allies against the wreckage of what we'd survived. But that day, there was something more in her eyes. She shifted in her seat, her usual composure cracking just enough to show nerves. "Ryan," she started softly, "I need to tell you something." I tilted my head. "What is it?" Her hands trembled against the cup. "I meant what I said on the phone, that I admired you. It wasn't just respect for your work. It was more. I've kept it quiet for so long, because it wasn't right. You were married. But now," she swallowed hard, "now I can't pretend I don't feel it. I care about you, not out of pity, not because of what Jenna did, because of who you are." I sat back, the words sinking in. After everything, after betrayal, after humiliation, here was someone offering me honesty. No games, no knives hidden behind their back. Just truth. I reached across the desk, rested my hand gently over hers. "Claire, after what I've been through, honesty is the one thing I need most. And with you, I don't feel betrayed. I feel chosen." Her eyes glistened, a smile breaking through as she let out a breath she'd been holding. At that moment, I realized something. I hadn't just ended a marriage or walked away from a company. I'd reclaimed myself, my dignity, my worth, my future. Jenna and Mark could keep their hollow victory. Let them choke on it. I had something real, and for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking back. What do you think? Was Ryan right to humiliate his wife in public the way she did to him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss the next story.